There we are, live. Funny thing is, it never starts right the first time. So, we'll try this a second week in a row, live, in my Footsteps podcast, without a map, number 2, Christopher Setterlund, if you didn't know. Don't mind my red face. So basically what's going on is I like to find a place to be at so I can shoot the sunset, essentially, and it's cold. It's 34, 35 degrees, and I'm sitting here in my car, and I don't want to have the engine running while I'm doing this. So what I do is I had the heat on super high for like 5 minutes, then I shut my car off, and I'm hot as hell right now. I'll show you where I'm at near the end, but I wanted to thank everyone who joined me last week. I had more than 200 views in total, so it was great, and I really appreciate it. I promise this week will be 100% fewer people sharing my screen by accident. So last week, let me explain this. Last week what happened was my buddy Steve popped up at the bottom here. You can't see them, but the names of people that are in the actual chat pop up. And my buddy Steve popped up. And anyone who comes in, I try my best to wave. There's a little button. So I waved to him. And then a thing popped up that said he wanted to join. And I thought it meant join the chat. So I clicked yes, but it meant join the actual stream. So what happened was I couldn't figure out how to get him off the screen, and he couldn't either. So here it is with half the screen is me, half the screen is Steve. So that was my rookie mistake. I like doing these Fridays at 5. It's almost like it's the end of the week, and it's, a chance to, you get out of work. Most people that have the 9 to 5s, and just kind of, I like to do this as it's a post-game show kind of for the podcasts. Now, that being said, there's no podcast this week. I do 3 consecutive weeks, and then I do a week off. So this is my week off, so I say post-game show for the podcast. There's actually no podcast this week. But, obviously, any of you that don't know the podcast, it's called the In My Footsteps podcast. It's New England history, travel. There's a lot of 80s nostalgia because that's my era that I grew up in. I'm adding interviews. The last podcast I interviewed my sister Katie Marks, who just started a company called Wear Your Wish. It's clothing and apparel, and it's available at wearyourwishes.com. So I'm trying to add a little bit more interviews, lifestyle stuff, because I'm also a certified personal trainer. So it's a whole big mishmash. It's like a walk inside my head. I can tend to jump from subject to subject because something will pop in my head. So this says without a map because I essentially don't have notes. I will be, in all honesty, I have bullet points in front of me to keep me on point. Last week I said, I'm going to do a quick one and it'll be 15 minutes. And 35 minutes later, because I said I'm going to shoot the sunset, I brought my camera, and it got to be so late I missed the sunset because I had a lot of fun chatting with people. So no podcast this week, but if you want to check it out, it's anywhere you get your podcast. So it's hosted through Buzzsprout, but it's available at iTunes, Pandora, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher, all of those. And they're all manageable. I keep them under an hour because I like it to be palatable. I don't want it to be something where it's a chore to listen to. And I do little segments like that, history and travel, etc. So some people, I forgot to mention this last week. I have a personal Instagram channel that this is right here, but I also have one for the podcast. And I thought I should probably explain why I'm doing this live stream here and not over there. The main thing comes down to exposure. That channel has way fewer subscribers, followers. So this one, I would say I have 20 times as many followers, which I don't have that many, but it's just that channel, if I tried to do this there, I'd be lucky if I got one person to come on and say hi. This one, there's a greater chance that people will see it, interact, ask questions. That's a big thing. I'm looking for this without a map deal to be a chance to interact with people that may have listened to the podcast, that may not know about it. And it's harder. You can throw things out on Twitter and Instagram and say, ask a question or whatever. But this is neat because it's very much interactive. I try to wave to everyone that comes into the chat. We'll see how many people come in. I also have to pay attention to not let anyone share my screen. So instead of a podcast this week, I'll share something that you can go and check out after. About 3 years ago, this week, within the last couple days, there was a big winter storm. Winter Storm Riley is the name. And I only know the name of it because I looked it up. I don't know why they name winter storms like hurricanes. I'm not sure if anyone knows that reason why. So my sister Kate, who's got the Wear Your Wish company, this was 3 years ago. She and my brother-in-law, they went to Mohegan Sun for the weekend. She said to me, would you mind checking in on the girls, her 2 daughters? Her son was staying with his dad. And this big storm was happening. And so I said, sure, I'll go check in on them. And I went and I picked them up. They were 18 and 16 at the time. And I took them out in this storm. I mean, it was a bad storm. If any of you are familiar with Cape Cod and the town of Sandwich and the Sandwich Boardwalk, this storm, the storm surge was so high that the water was more than a quarter mile down the road from the parking lot of the Sandwich Boardwalk. And I have video and photos, but I have a video on YouTube that's a lot of this stuff. And I sent my sister pictures and video saying, don't worry, the girls are fine, as we're out in this storm with the waves crashing. And it's a fun thing. Like, I like going out and doing the things that they're not dangerous. I'm not really bad, but you know, that storm, if any of you remember, it really destroyed Nauset Beach in Orleans. I went there with my camera and my phone, and I wanted to get some video and photos of how bad the storm was. There's Nauset Beach has a main entrance. A little ways to the south, there's a road, Potchett Road. It's semi-private. You know, don't hold me to that. But it's a way I like to go in. And there's a little boardwalk that goes over the marsh area, and it leads you to the Nauset ORV trail. So I went out there. The water's high, and you can see it will be off to your left is the main beach and the main dunes. And basically, the water's just coming through. It's ripped the dunes to shreds. And I'm out there with my phone. It was an older phone than this one I'm using here. And I found a little patch of higher ground, and I'm standing there trying to get video of the waves coming through, and it's coming all around me, and my heart was going. And I think that was the only time in anything that I've done with any photography and travel stuff where I feared for my life. So that was Winter Storm Riley 3 years ago this week. There's a video on YouTube. You can find me there, Christopher Setterlund. I've got a lot of travel videos. 4K New England is something that I've really started doing. My Canon camera, it's with me over here, the Rebel T7, it has 4K video capability, so I've been doing that. 4K just means it's so high def, it's like you're there, and I enjoy that. But since there's no podcast proper this week, I wanted to talk about dreams and passions. This isn't going to get into some crazy rant. It's one of those, I've been looking for my own motivation and inspiration over the last several months. So a lot of these things that I bring up, it's like I was talking to me, but it may inspire and help someone else. So that was why I added it to my bullet points that are right here in front of me. So I'll just sum it up. I'm leaving my current job. So I have a day job. I've been working in a retirement home cooking. I've been at 2 different ones. It's a total of about 3 years. I'm leaving this current job in search of going back into full-time personal training. I've been out of it for 3 years. And I feel as if the path you're on, it's like a highway. And you have the directions. You know where you need to go. But if you're on a highway in your car, sometimes you need to get gas. It's necessary. So you get off at this exit to get gas, and then you might see something like, ooh, that looks interesting. Let me go that way. And you end up lost down these back roads. That's how I feel like I've been for 3 years, is I got off the highway to get gas. It was necessary. And I was lost for 3 years on the back roads. And now I'm getting back out on the highway. I am every bit a writer and a storyteller. I could just say I feel like I'm getting back on the right track, but that's boring to me. It's just not interesting. But with the switching jobs, everyone has to do that. Very few people have it where their career path is a straight line and there's never any bumps or adversity. Those people are few and far between. And what I wanted to be all along was a writer and work in creative fields. My ultimate dream, this goes back to the podcast, would be to take this podcast on the road and be at different places and basically perform the podcast as a traveling one. Like I could have some week, like, okay, it's in my footsteps and I'm here in Des Moines, Iowa. And I would tell a story about Des Moines, Iowa, something in history and some retro from it. I would have to do my research, but that's my ultimate dream. And it started from being a writer. But every now and then you get off track. A lot of it comes down to finances. As a trainer, I was having trouble with money. And I got lucky 3 years ago. If you see me stop and it's people are entering the chat and I'm waving to them. So if I start and then stop, that's what it is. The only other thing it might be is if people walk by. I'm at this beach here and it's semi-private, wink. So I'll wave to them just so they don't think I'm too sketchy. But basically, you sometimes have to do what you have to do to get where you want to be. So 3 years ago, I was given an opportunity to make a steady income back in cooking, which was not what I wanted to do, but it was so necessary. And I was happy at first because I was in a bad situation, very bad, where I was broke and I had maxed out credit cards. I was at the point where I was going to get lunch on my lunch break from the gym at Shaw's, and I would get a protein bar and water, and I wouldn't have enough money in my account to pay for it. That was just because being a personal trainer and a writer was like, oh, this is a great combination. You work out people's minds, you work out people's bodies. All right, that sounds awesome. And it kind of crashed and burned, and I had to go back into cooking, which was a fail. I saw it as a fail, but it was necessary because otherwise, God only knows where I would, if I had been stubborn and stuck with the training for even another month, I have no idea what would have happened. So I don't regret going back into cooking because it was necessary, but there comes a point where you adapt to your surroundings, and that can be good or bad. And when it's in a bad way, you start to associate more with, I started to associate more with the cooking. And I didn't feel like the trainer anymore. And I started to not feel like the writer, which was where this podcast came from. It was like a reaction where I said, oh God, I don't feel like myself anymore. I need to do something. Here's a podcast. And it's awesome. And I love it. And anybody out there in the chat, you all can do this. This is not hard. it's, for me right now, it's a stream of consciousness. I have my Cliff's Notes to just keep me on track, but I was never a speaker, public speaker. Good Lord, I was as shy as you can get, as introverted as you can get. It's all a stream of consciousness, and when you're passionate and you believe in what you're doing and saying, it's easy. All of you could do this. I posted something on Twitter last night that I don't know if anyone saw, but there's a comedian, director, his name is Kevin Smith. My sister, Ashley, is in the chat. She'll know damn well who he is. He did Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob. He's got a stand-up comedy album that comes up every now and then on my Pandora. And he has one of the clips, I think it's just titled Express Yourself. And in it, he just talks about his job as a director, as an actor, saying anybody can do this. And it spoke to me the first time I heard it a couple years ago. It spoke to me, and I like to share that because your passion might not be podcasting. It might not be writing. It might not be personal training. It's something else, but it gives you the same feeling that I get when I do this. The interaction, the connection. You feel you're doing what you were meant to do on this earth. And after 3 years of doing what I needed to do in cooking to save money and recover from how bad things were, now it's the time to go back to do what I want to do. And so I'm taking a couple of months away from work to retrain myself to be a trainer. And then I'm going to hopefully go back into working at a country club that a friend of mine, she's asked me, she said she could get me into. So I'm going to try that. But what I'm trying to say is, even if you've gotten off of that road that where you see where you want to be and you kind of get off of it, you can always find your way back to your passions if you kind of step back. That's what I had to do. COVID helped in a way that when you're trapped inside for months and months and months, you need to find something to occupy yourself, and binge watching only gets you so far. And this helped me rediscover my passion for writing. The podcasting came from that. But that's all I'm trying to say, is that I'm switching things up. I'm not saying any of you need to just suddenly, oh, he said I should do that, so I'm going to go quit my job and move to Hawaii and teach yoga on the beach or something. Although that would be great. But it's one of those, always keep that in mind. Whatever, if you're doing what you're passionate about, that's awesome. And I envy that, because I've spent so many years building towards what I'm still building. It's like a giant Lego castle, and I still don't have all the pieces. So my writing journey, it started in 2005. I wanted to be a writer since I was in second grade. My teacher, Miss Rodriguez, she kind of instilled the passion for writing in me. And a few years ago, I had her at a book event, and I embarrassed her and made her get up so people could clap for her. But 2005, and this is kind of a funny thing, I entered a screenplay contest, and the name of the contest was Without a Box, was the company. And the funny thing is, this live stream is called Without a Map. And the funny thing is, I have in my notes that I wrote down, it says Without a Box on it. And I opened it and I said, you gotta be kidding me, because I was thinking about it, because I wanted to share it. I wrote a screenplay for this contest in 2005 when I was living in Florida. And obviously I didn't win. But I said, this is a good idea. I should work it into a short story, which I did. It was called 8 Hours, was the name of it. To sum it up, basically, it's a guy that has, it's like his last straw, a job interview that's hours and hours away. He drives to it feeling that this is his last possible moment. If he doesn't get this job, he doesn't know what he's going to do. And he doesn't get the job, and he has to drive all that way back home to tell his girlfriend that he failed, and he gives up. And he gets so depressed that he ends up looking for a way to end it, and he decides on suicide by cop, which is the idea, like you antagonize a police officer so much that they fear for their life, basically. But it doesn't happen. He keeps driving and he can't find a police officer. And he figures it's, that's kind of telling him, don't do it. I won't spoil the ending and all that stuff. But that was the very first thing I wrote with the intention of doing anything with it. So what I ended up doing was making an ebook. And this was 2006, early 2006. Amazon had just introduced the Kindle. And so I put it up there. Any of you out there, like I said, podcast, live stream, ebook, you can do. Anything that you think as far as something you're passionate about, gardening, carpentry, I don't know, I'm throwing things out there. You can do that. I ended up with 14 ebooks on Amazon. If you go to Amazon and go to their Kindle store and look up my name, Setterlund, there's not many people with that last name. Setterlund. You'll see all of my old ones, and all the cover art is I did it. Some of them are supremely cheesy from 2007 and 8. There's one short story that I called Dreamality, which is basically it's almost like Inception, not quite. But the cover is me pretending to be asleep like this, and that's the cover. So, yeah, no wonder why I didn't get a book deal from that. But I've been working towards this for many years. And that's why it's like, if you're doing something you're passionate about and it's not financially fulfilling, I guess would be the word. It's like, don't give up on it. Because right now, at the end of May, my 6th actual published book through real publishers, I have to tell people that. They're not still self-published. I have a real publisher. But it's coming out. Iconic Hotels and Motels of Cape Cod. Ooh, you know what I can do? All right, so I'm trying to figure out how to show you photos. I can show you, let's see. Oh, this is going to be great. So, where is it? There you go. That's the book cover. Oh, man. See, I'm getting better at this already. So there you go. That's the cover of the book. I had to approve the copy that's on the left side. But that book is coming out. Now, how do I get it off the page? Yeah. Does anyone know? Well, there we go. Technical difficulties. I'll get better at this as I go along, but that was the cover of the book. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere near where I want to be. Thanks, Kate. My sister's laughing at me in the chat because I don't. Hey, at least it's better than having Steve on the screen. That was just like, I had to hide the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. I had to talk about how I'm going to interview him at some point to make it look like I didn't totally screw up, which I did. So, I'm not anywhere near where I want to be as a writer, especially with the podcast. I've only been doing it 4 months, but I've been doing research on marketing podcasts. That's where this live stream came from, so that I can interact with people that may have listened or may have not listened, and then I can direct them towards it. So, I'm just saying, whatever you're passionate about, always keep an eye towards that. And if I've been telling people at my current job where I'm leaving after this week, I've said to them, if you're passionate about cooking, God bless you. There's a lot of amazing chefs. I worked with a guy named Maui, my second father. He taught me everything I know about the cooking industry. That's his passion. And he's amazing at it. And I would never say to him, oh God, why would you ever want to be a cook? How he feels about cooking is how I feel about writing. And how some of you may feel about, I don't know, whatever you're passionate about. So the next podcast, there's going to be one next week, episode 12. And I'm going to talk about my Ancestry DNA results, which are pretty interesting. My mother is amazed by some of it, some that she insists is wrong, but I don't know. I can only go with what Ancestry told me. And we're going to talk about the Rocky Point amusement park that was in Warwick, Rhode Island. So that's going to be really fun too. I'm excited about sharing the old educational films and film strips, like when we'd have a TV wheeled into the classroom to watch instead of class. So I've been researching the old ones, and I've been watching a few that I forgot about. So it's pretty funny. I'll share some of those. There's This Week in History, which includes the creation of the Monopoly game, which that was pretty fun to research. And I'll be putting this video here up on YouTube, up on Facebook, to increase the number of people that can see it. Because the one last week, as I mentioned at the top, it had more than 200 viewers, but not all at once. This will go on IGTV after. So that's why I wanted to bring out some stuff. So I'm wearing my Cape Cloth hat right here. So my buddy Fitzy, Sean Fitzpatrick, he started Cape Cloth. He sold it last year. So he's not owner anymore. And I forget who the owner is. God, I feel bad. I hope you don't see this and say, I told you. But I wanted to share that Cape Cloth. I also wanted to share, so these folks here, Cape Hook Designs. That is, so my mother, one of her oldest friends, Debbie Clark, her daughter Jen, and her husband, Brian Huggins, they started this company. They sent me that and a few other things as a thank you for mentioning them on the podcast a few episodes ago. I wanted to share that again. CapeHookDesigns.com. Go there. I always talk about my sister Kate and WhereYourWishes.com. I'll tell you a funny thing. I'm recording episode 12 of the podcast. I had to go through and edit because twice in my intro, I called it Where My Wish. And I was listening to it as I edited it. And I said, you got to be kidding me. How stupid am I? So I had to go through and cut that out. So I'd be talking and then it would just edit and be Where Your Wish. And I was like, oh, smart I am. I'm also at some point with this podcast, I would love to do a Q&A segment. Like I'd love to have people send me questions or DM through Instagram. Just anything. Well, not anything, but something pertaining to the podcast. And so that's what I'm hoping for eventually. And yeah, so I hope I've waved to everyone that was in the chat. I hope. I've seen when people pop up, I just hit that wave button just so that you know that I'm not just blabbing on, that I'm actually trying to interact. Mostly what I see now is Kate laughing at me. And so that's not anything different from my previous 40 years or so that she's been in my life. So I also, before I forget, and I wouldn't forget, but today is a special day. So I wanted to wish a happy second birthday to this little one here. So I hope you can see that on the screen. So this is my youngest niece, Sylvie. And she's 2 years old. I call her a little cuteness monkey. That's, I don't know, that won't stick when she gets older because she'll hate that name. But she is just so much fun and so cute. And I make up any excuse I can to see her. So I wanted to share several of her little face. They go in order. So on the far left, the top corner, that's the oldest picture. That one in the bottom corner is literally from yesterday when I brought her present. So I wanted to wish her happy birthday because when she gets older, maybe she'll watch some of these because she'll hear stories of how crazy I was and am, and then she'll want to see that. So there, that's her right there. I hope you enjoyed that. So anyone in the chat, have you watched the podcast? Have you enjoyed the podcast? Before I finish this and show you where I am, because just like I said last week, I enjoyed this kind of stream of consciousness, and then I totally forgot to shoot the sunset. This time, the sunset is right over my shoulder, so I can see it. Last time I parked in a place that was secret because I was afraid that people would come up and start banging on the window. And in full disclosure, there's been several cars that have come by and people that have walked by, and I just keep talking. I figure they'd either think I'm crazy or whatever. But I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. I put a lot of effort into details, organization, editing. People say it sounds professional. That's because I edit it well. Otherwise, they would sound like this, where it's a lot of me stopping to breathe in because I can just ramble. And also, I do and all that stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed them. I hope you've enjoyed these live streams. Starting after a few days from now when I'm not at my old job, maybe I'll have more time. Maybe I'll be doing these all the time because I'll be bored out of my mind. It's going to be basically 8 weeks of exercising to get myself back in shape, because God knows I couldn't train anyone now. Half the people I trained would be in better shape than me. And it's going to be, I'm taking a course to get certified as so it's post-rehab training. Like if you got out of physical therapy, I would be the one to take the mantle. So I'm going to get that certification, which re-ups my personal trainer certification. And hopefully in May, I get back into doing the actual training work. Some in-home training, I do that as well. But that's my story. I hope I wanted to inspire/motivate with this live stream without coming off preachy, because I sure as hell don't have all the answers as far as the road of life. I'm 43 right now, and I'm at the point where I'm leaving a job because I'm still pursuing my dream. Now, granted, it's not some sob story. I'm very happy with how life has gone in general, and every step you take, you learn from, or at least you should. But I hope that the idea of always keeping one eye on your dreams, that kind of resonates. I'm not sure. So what we'll do now is I'm going to get out and I'm going to show you where we are, because it's more fun that way. Let me take my keys too. Can't leave those in the car. I don't want any seagulls stealing it. All right, so let's flip this around. There we are. Slam the door, lock it. So where we are right now, so it's Torrey Road in Sandwich. So I won't keep it. It's not going to be one of those where it's just me walking, but I want to get you to see the actual beach. So see, there's a boardwalk. It's got names on them. This person, this family obviously has about 1,000 different ones of them. So I chose this place in Sandwich because I was talking about that story of taking my nieces out during the storm 3 years ago. And not surprisingly, we actually came up here not too far away. So I decided to go here. So we were right over there. Not right over there, but the next parking lot over. So there you go. It's Town Neck Beach. Town Neck Beach is right down there. So let's turn this, flip it. So there you go. I hope everyone enjoyed this live stream. I'm going to try to do them every Friday at 5. If for some reason I feel ambitious and I do another one, I will definitely let you know. But after this is going to go up on IGTV, and it's up there, I think, forever. But thank you so much to everyone that joined in, that made fun. That's my sister. And get out there and explore. It's going to start getting warm out. And if you haven't checked out the podcast, In My Footsteps podcast, wherever you get them, thank you so much. And I will see you next week, if not sooner.